everyone out there in podcast land. I'm Suzanne A. Wells, your hostess with the mostess, and welcome to episode number 54 of eBay the Right Way. Today's date is March 30th, 2022. My guest today is Kim Furman. You may recognize her from the $100 and $350 mega size videos and posts on my Facebook group. Before we get started, here are some shout outs to listeners who sent in or posted testimonials on the Facebook group. We're going to start with Nia Stevenson. She said, I won this auction last night for the item that is found on page 48 in Suzanne's BOLO book. This book really does pay for itself and then some. So students who have the book, you can check that out. If you don't have the book, this is an electronic item. It is vintage and it can sell for up to $400. I'm so happy to see that somebody found this item because this has been circulating a while. Next is Paula Edlund. She said, thank you, Suzanne, because of your BOLO book that I purchased recently. I nabbed the item on page 85 for only $1. Awesome profit. So if we look at page 85, we see that this is a kitchen item and it sells for up to $60 and it is also vintage. Next up is Amy Fijas. She said, I'm so excited. Yesterday at my Goodwill, I found 2 of the items on page 99 of Suzanne's BOLO handbook. This item is in the linens and sewing section of the book, and these can sell for up to $300. So Amy, I can't wait to hear how much you sell those items for. Congratulations on that find. And finally, Mia said, I picked up the item in Suzanne's BOLO book on page 153 for free from Facebook. This is a toy and it sells for up to $80. So great work, everybody. I'm so happy that you're finding the items in the book. And remember, garage sale season is quickly approaching. So if you don't have the book, the link is below the podcast. You want to be in the know on these items so you can recognize them when you are out hunting in the wild. Okay, now let's get into the podcast with Kim.
Okay, listeners, today we have Kim Furman with us, and she is on the West Coast, which I haven't had too many guests outside of Eastern or Central time zones. So she got up really early to make this happen. How are you doing on this early morning, Kim?
I'm doing well. It's not quite warm just yet, but it is getting warmer today. So I'm doing well.
And where exactly are you located?
I'm in the Southern California, northeast corner of Los Angeles County. Of course, Los Angeles County is one of the largest counties, but it's in the Mojave Desert area in the what we call the aerospace belt. This is where the space shuttle was made. A lot of the B-2 bombers, everything like that, were made here. So it's Antelope Valley, Lancaster, Palmdale area of Los Angeles County.
And how did you end up out there?
Well, there's this guy that I met 32 years ago, and we were both at the same college. He's from this area. He actually grew up here, and ironically, he was born in Lancaster, California, and I was born in Lancaster, Ohio. So I made the transition when he asked me to marry him, and we've been here ever since. So we're coming up on 29 years. 29 years.
Congratulations.
Yeah, there was only supposed to be a 2-year commitment in Southern California because he was getting his master's degree, and he got that a long time ago, and we're still here. So
Did you name your first child Lancaster?
we probably should have, but no, we named her after. I played college ball, and ironically, I named her after one of my teammates. So it was kind of like a joke deal, but it turned out to be a beautiful name. So no, I should have named her though, the Lancaster, something like that. Yeah.
Or you could name the dog that, something.
Right. Well, it's pronounced different for wherever you are, because there's a Lancaster, Pennsylvania, there's a Lancaster, Ohio, and I'm sure there's other ones too. But in California, it's Lancaster. So spelled the same, but just it's pronounced differently. And sometimes I get confused when I go back home. I'll say Lancaster, and I'm like, where what are you talking about? And I'm like, oh, Lancaster. So it kind of
try living in Georgia where everything's pronounced different.
Yeah.
You have a city that's spelled Cairo. How do you think you would pronounce that?
Right.
Like Egypt, Cairo.
Cairo, right?
They pronounce it Cairo here, like syrup. Cairo.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Cairo.
Yeah. There's a lot of that going on. And then we have one that's spelled Lafayette, like in Louisiana. But in Georgia, they call it Lafette.
Okay.
So I have worked very hard to overcome all of the dialects and drawls here in the South. And some people say, oh, I love your Southern drawl. And I'm like, dang, I'm trying not to have one.
Yeah, I worked really hard not to have one. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, let's start with the first question is, how did you get involved selling on eBay?
I'm kind of a bit of a tomboy. That's kind of like what my job is. I'm a physical education teacher, so I've always enjoyed sports and I've always enjoyed outdoors and doing things. And that's how my parents, they let me, I was playing ball with the boys and stuff. So one of my favorite Christmas gifts as a kid growing up would be in my stocking would be these Hot Wheel cars. So I've collected them. I saved them all from my childhood. And this is after I've had children. So this would have been back in like the late 90s. I was in Walmart and just trying to pass time with my kids. I have 2 handicapped children, so it was in between sessions where they had their speech sessions. And so I was just trying to pass some time, and we're going through the toy aisle, and there's this huge fight, like fist thrown fight in the toy aisle. And I'm like, what the heck is going on? These grown men are fighting in the toy aisle. It's like, so I was trying to like move the cart away so my kids wouldn't get hurt or whatever. And they just get up and they all walk away. And I turned to the people who, the workers there. I'm like, what just happened? They're like, oh, we unloaded a box of Hot Wheels. And it was like, bing, what do you mean you unloaded a box of Hot Wheels? They're like, well, in some of these boxes, there's like one car that is really valuable. And these guys come here every single day looking for these cars.
Oh my gosh.
So then that kind of started me on pulling out my Hot Wheels for my kids, letting them play with them, and then thinking, wonder if there's any value in these. So that just kind of reconnected my interest as a kid in Hot Wheels. So then I started collecting them, going to the conventions and buying and selling Hot Wheels in the beginning. So then I had another kid that added 3 to our little crew, and things got busy. So then I just kind of like kept up with it from, I don't know, maybe 5 years. And then just staying at home, my husband working, staying home, having 2 children with handicaps, trying to figure out how that's going to work. I started transitioning to other things. And now you grow to, like, I would find things and I would try to sell them, and they would hold spots on shelves where the videos were, wherever in our house or in the shed. You try to stuff things where they could go. So it just became not working at the time. It just became something that earned a little bit of extra money. And then when my son went to kindergarten, I went back to work. It was full-time working. It kind of lost some interest. I was mainly buying for a few years off of eBay of stuff that I wanted or whatever. And then within the last, I don't know, 8 years, I believe it is, my husband and I started going to estate sales. And it just took off from there. I mean, estate sales around here, you have a plethora of things to kind of pick from because, like I said, we're the aerospace industry. you have a lot of space people aerospace people out there who like
I just got a visual of little green men. Space
yes, little aliens too. Yeah, you have like people who like that stuff, and I wasn't interested in stuff. I didn't grow up here with that, but my husband is a huge follower of that stuff. So he started picking up stuff like that, and I'm like, well, what can I find? So I just started picking up things, not knowing what would sell or not sell, kind of like what everybody else starts off with. Oh, I like this. This is cute. Somebody surely was going to like this too. So that's how it started. Like within the last 8 years, I started calling this my hobby. I enjoy it. It's something fun to do. It entertains me because I'm thinking, who in the world is going to buy this? And there's something out there for everybody. They buy it. They come. It just happened.
You list it, they will come.
Exactly. That's the new thing. Doing some of the stuff, I tell my husband, this is going to sell. He's like, that's not going to sell. And when it sells, he's like, wow, I didn't think that would sell. So I
always look at like where it's going. For some reason, that's very interesting. Like, oh, somebody in Utah bought this Salad Master, and I'll Google the address and like look at it. And that really happened. And it was like a polygamous community where they are like fundamentalists, and they do everything the old fashioned way, and a lot of cooking, or something that goes overseas. And you're like, you just laugh. You're like, I remember picking that up off the floor at Goodwill, it had fallen off the hanger. And now it's going to Japan, and somebody paid $100. It's just
like, wow,
that never gets old,
Oh, it's actually, to me, it's entertaining. It really is, because you get the excitement of finding something, and then when you list it and somebody actually buys it, and you're like, what are they going to do with this? I wonder what they're going to do with this. And I do the same thing. There's sometimes I will Google addresses just to see what kind of house I live in, because I'm like, okay, this was a lot of money, and you'd be surprised. It doesn't matter what kind of house they're in.
I know, and it's like, oh, they'll buy a Christmas ornament for $300 or something, and then you're like, oh, I bet they live in a mansion, and then you Google it, and it's like, 1,500 square foot ranch. The house is 50 years old, and it's just somebody wanted it.
Right. And then that's, to me, that's the thrilling part of that, finding treasures and reconnecting them to people who really want them. So
and you can't make assumptions like, oh, I bet, a very affluent person is going to buy this. And you don't, first of all, you're never going to know that, but, there's a lot of assumptions being made on social media about why somebody bought something. And the only way you can know why is to ask them. You just can't assume like, oh, they bought this because they're, this is their job, and they bought these work boots for this, whatever it might be. It's just, we're so curious as humans. It's like, what is that? What is that about? What are they going to do with it? Wow, that's interesting that I had that and they paid that much money for it.
I actually asked, I sold. So my dad passed away, I don't know, coming up on 7 years ago. And so we're cleaning out the house. And this past year, I moved my mom into a smaller house, and she goes, these weren't your dad's, but you can have them. I think I buried his with him. I'm like, what are they, Mom? Show me, what is it? And she goes out with these false teeth. And I'm like,
oh my Lord.
I'm like, all right, why would Dad have somebody's teeth that didn't belong to him? She goes, I don't know. I don't know where they came from. I just know they're not your dad's. And I'm like, okay. I can probably sell those.
Oh my gosh.
And I did sell them.
History. Yeah.
I sold them. And so then they asked the person, I'm like, okay, I'm curious. Why are you buying a set of false teeth? I mean, it just makes no sense to me. And they were using them for Halloween decoration. So I'm like, like a deflated balloon there. I'm like, oh, really? I was thinking something like, I don't know what.
I'm going to make a necklace out of them.
Exactly. Go silence of the lens on us or something. But
well, I know some of the dental work has gold in it. The older ones have real gold, and people buy them and then take them to the we buy gold places and sell them, get more money. And there's that. And then there's like dental museums where they just have things on display. I remember there was a sale in one of my videos. Somebody had sold a bunch of dental work, bridges and some false teeth and partials and all that stuff. And I was like, where did that go? And she said, it went to a dental museum. Like, I don't know who's going to go to a dental museum and walk around and look at stuff like that. But that could be a possibility.
Yeah. So anything sells, like I said, false teeth. So, yeah.
Okay, so now maybe you can tell the story of the pencil sharpener that we chatted about before we started
Oh,
recording.
yeah. I was saying that I watch your videos and they kind of give me some inspiration on what I should be looking for. And when I first started going to these estate sales, if you subscribe to you, it gives you an alert. Hey, Suzanne just posted whatever. So I clicked on it and we're listening to it as we're driving around to these estate sales in Los Angeles. And
Oh, you're talking about on YouTube, it gives you an alert when I post a new video.
right.
Okay.
Because I subscribe to you. So every time you post, it sends me a
Right.
message. And that, like I said, during my job, I just click on it and then I can listen to it as I'm driving.
Great.
So this alert came on. And so we're listening to this podcast. My husband and I are listening to it, our video or whatever, in our car. And we pull up to this estate sale. And I'm just going through listening and everything. And in one of the descriptions that you gave was somebody sold this pencil sharpener, this Panasonic battery operated pencil sharpener, and they sold it for $45. And I'm like, wow, $45 for a battery operated pencil sharpener. Didn't think anything of it. Literally get out of the car, walk down the sidewalk. And this was a former Methodist pastor, not married. And so a lot of religious stuff in there. And you go into the back house, detached house, and that was his office. And in his office, literally sitting on his desk is this pencil sharpener that was just watched like 5 minutes before. So I pick it up and I take it to the checkout. I'm like, how much for this pencil sharpener? And nothing was priced either. That was just another thing. How much is this pencil sharpener? She's like, oh, $3. Oh, I put it back down on the table. She's like, well, what's your price? I'm like, $1. She's like, okay, take it. So I get back in the car. I'm literally like telling my husband, this is the pencil sharpener we just saw on this video, listened to on this video here. And he goes, no, that's interesting. He goes, well, the only one person in the world who bought it just bought it. So they're not going to buy yours. So I literally take a picture of it in my lap. You can see my lap in this picture. And I try to crop it out and I post it to sell. And it literally sold before we even made it home. Pasadena is about an hour away from us.
Oh my gosh.
Literally sold by the time we made it home. And my husband was just like, I can't believe that. I can't believe that. So yeah, it's stuff like that. Just kind of like, I would not have picked up that pencil sharpener had I not watched that video, listened to that video. And literally just within minutes of watching that video, you walk into an estate sale and there it is. And so that just to me was just like, it was meant to be.
That's like the universe saying, you can find these things. They're out there. It's just all about.
And there are people who want stuff like that. And that's not something I would use. I'm a teacher. I use pencil sharpeners, but no, I don't really, not anymore. But yeah, you would have thought that would have been a great gift for a teacher. But no, I would not have picked it up had I not seen the video. And we didn't buy much that day because, like I said, nothing was priced. And I don't like going to estate sales when there's nothing priced because then you get to the checkout and it's an exorbitant amount. So I just, it was the only thing we purchased. And she wanted $3 for it. And I'm like, no, $1. And so she's like, take it. So it worked out.
Okay. And you're a teacher. What do you teach?
So this is my 28th year in education. I did take a pause when my kids were younger, but I was also still involved in the schools. So I taught junior high physical education. And due to an injury resulted from a student, I switched over to what's called adapted physical education. That is working with children with handicaps. So it's still doing physical education, but it's doing it with students. You're meeting them on their needs. It's students who are nonverbal, autistic, in wheelchairs, just with a multiple disabilities. And so that was my dream job from the beginning. And it's one of those jobs that don't open up very often. And I just happened to get it this year. So this is my first year as an adaptive physical education teacher. And I will do this until I retire. I always say I have the best job in the world because I love outdoors. I was just growing up playing sports all my life. And I loved playing with my junior high kids. And everybody's like, junior high, those kids are the worst kids. They're not. They're not. They're just kids who are trying to figure out their way in the world. And I always had fun playing with them. And so I've just kind of switched my routes just a little bit. It's just a little bit more severe. You're literally hand on hand moving the kid to throw a ball or to catch a ball. So it's just taken a different path. And I'm where I want to be. So adaptive physical education is what I do.
And it sounds like God gave you children to learn on so that you could take those skills and patience. I think that must take a lot of patience into the world to help other kids.
Right. I feel like I don't know if I should say this, but I feel like I have a little bit more compassion towards
Absolutely.
parents.
Mhm.
When those parents come into those meetings, I know exactly how they feel. You want the best for your kid in the world, and when they come in there and they know that their choices are limited, and you can say, "Hey, I've been through it with you. I know exactly what you're feeling, and you know what? It does get better. You're in the thick of it now, but it does get better." Yeah, I do have two deaf children, and that was hard. Not as extreme as some of the parents, and not as extreme as some of the students I do work with, but each person goes through something different. So it was just a little bit more challenging for us, not having deaf children or not having deaf people in our community, having to figure out how is this going to work, thinking, oh, they're not going to be able to do anything. But that's not true. My daughter went on to be a college pitcher, and she
Wow.
actually took my job at my old school as a physical education teacher. She's teaching junior high PE. And then my son, who wants to be the first deaf firefighter in LA County. So that's what he's working towards. I don't think it'll happen just because of the requirements but he can probably work something in the LA County Fire Department. And that's what he's working for. He's like, I'm going to be the first one. So, yeah, so I feel like I can kind of relate with our parents when we come into these meetings and we talk about the strengths and weaknesses of our children, and the tears are just pouring down their eyes. I can kind of say, hey, I've been there with you. I know what you're going through. It does get easier.
Well, and that's wonderful. They're breaking barriers because of their, I don't want to say limitations, but their
They're handicapped. There's things
okay.
that
It's hard to know what to say. What you don't want to say.
Yeah, you get some people who said they should disabilities or handicaps, and then you get some people, there's no difference about me. So, but
you want to say physically challenged or whatever.
Right,
I don't want to insult anybody, but when I was in high school, they were called handicapped.
Yeah.
We have handicapped parking spaces. So,
right.
Well, I just commend you on that journey and, putting that out in the world to help other people, because, it's people like you that are going to help all these other parents that they don't know what to do.
Yeah.
They need some direction. They need to hear from people that have been there and how to get through it.
Right.
So, and I'm really glad you didn't say you were a math teacher, because then we couldn't be friends.
You know what? I started out as a high school geometry teacher. So yeah, I kind of switched avenues on there, but math is okay. It's not my best, because they teach this new math. And when I try to help my kids or my niece, I'm just like, oh man, I don't know.
Well, in math, it's not creative. It just is what it is. And you have to know it. And I'm pretty good at math, but it's just, it's not creative.
Right.
It's either right or wrong. No gray areas.
I wanted to be the teacher who didn't have to sit down all the time. So I always tease my students, who do you think the smartest teacher is in this school? And they're like, Mr. They would say Mr. I won't say his name, but the math teacher, because he taught the smart kids for the upper division of math. I'm like, nope, it's me. They're like, what did you? I'm like, because I get paid the same as much as he does, but I'm out here playing games with you. and
in high school, all the guys that were in the advanced math and they're doing, calculus in the 11th grade,
trigonometry and all that stuff.
I can't date you. You're too smart.
Nope.
I don't know any of that.
Well, I married a biology teacher, so he can help the kids with the science part and the math part too. So
good.
That's all right.
Okay. Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing that personal stuff. And one more question. Sign language, of course.
Well, so I was working at the University of Rio Grande when I was pregnant with my second child, but my oldest daughter, Rachel, she was just diagnosed when I took the position. She was just diagnosed as being moderate to profound deaf. And it was one of those things where it's just like, wow, what do we do in this situation? So we were kind of working through with what we do with her, how are we going to handle this? And then my second daughter was born, and she was not born deaf. So we're like, okay, let's get Rachel her hearing aids, and we're kind of work our way through that. She got into speech therapy, deaf and hard of hearing services and stuff like that. So when I was pregnant with my third child, we were having some difficulties in the school. They wanted to send her to a deaf school, and she wasn't having any part of that. When it came time that we went to this deaf school and they were using their sign language, their hands, she literally sat on her hands and would refuse to communicate with them. And she kept shaking her head, no, no, no. So then we went to the other school where they were talking, and she like went right up to the kids because she was forming some words, but she just wasn't forming them correctly because she wasn't hearing correctly. And she just like was playing with them at the kitchen, sat down and ate with them. And so it was like, okay, this is where she wants to be. But when I was pregnant with my third child, and when he was born kind of the same way that Rachel was. I knew immediately that he was deaf. So my husband and I started taking sign language classes then. And it was like 2 years. We did it for 2 years. So that was like 19 years ago. So it's one of those things where my children didn't use sign language.
Okay.
So if you don't use it, you lose it. There's some things I do recall. So we didn't become prolific in it. We were not pretty signers of whatsoever. I mean, there's some beautiful hand signers out there, and we are not that. My kids had trouble with foreign languages, so they went back to the college and took sign language as their foreign language through high school. We have a college here in town, so they were able to do that. So they know it much better than what we do because we just didn't use it with our kids. There's like, stop, stop crying, or like, yeah, stop. We use the word stop a lot. And there's some things we did use, a bathroom or whatever, but we did not become sign language users. I do know some, like I could see some, I have some deaf parents come into these meetings that I'm in, and sometimes they'll sign to me, and I can say what they're signing, but it's hard for me to kind of sign back to them. I think I feel
Okay.
foolish about that, but
So that was a wrong assumption on my part that.
well, no, not necessarily, because you would think that most deaf people would do sign language, but my kids, you know, as parents, and I'll say this, and there'll be some people out there who probably won't appreciate this, but we wanted the best for our children. I know every parent does, but we were thinking we're living in a hearing world. My daughter already expressed that she wanted to go to a hearing class. So we went the route of getting them cochlear implants, and that is a no-no in the deaf community. And
Really?
yeah. So
Because just like that's the easy way out, or
they're right. There's nothing wrong with who they are. God made them that way. That's the way they're going to be. Our kids were young, so we made the choice for them, but they said that's what they would have wanted anyways. I mean, of course, because now they're hearing, so they wear this device that they can hear. But it's just shunned upon in the deaf community. Even when my son took sign language classes, he was in there with some deaf children, deaf student, not children, because they're adults now, deaf students. And the teacher was deaf, and he was pointed out for having a cochlear implant. And so he kind of felt like the teacher was kind of picking on him. But it's just one of those things. Each person's different, and you have to respect their beliefs. And if somebody chooses not to have a cochlear implant, I respect their beliefs, because they are getting by with how they know how to get by, and that's their form of life. And so sign language is a good tool to communicate with people. And I know enough to kind of get myself by, but I wish I knew more, but I lost it. If you don't use it, you lose it.
yeah, just like any language. Yep.
Right. So I
Okay.
unfortunately lost a lot of that, but yeah.
Well, didn't mean to digress into that
Oh,
topic.
that's right.
I was just very interested, and thank you for sharing all that personal information. So maybe that will help someone out there who's listening.
Yeah.
So let's get back to eBay. You post frequently on the Money Making Mondays.
Yeah.
So can you talk about some of your notable sales, maybe your highest sales, most surprising, other than the pencil sharpener?
I have some fun sales. I think one of them would be, I found this beautiful, and I'm probably say the name wrong, Cathnis. It's a paperweight made over in Europe.
Oh,
Is Cathnis, Cathniss, I believe is how it's printed or spelled. But anyways, I found this paperweight. We're at an estate sale on the east side of town here, country farm. Like people had been there for 50 years. And I found this beautiful paperweight. And for some reason that drew my attraction to glassware, decorative glassware. And I'm holding it. I see that it's signed on the bottom and it has a number. I'm like, wow, this is a beautiful item in this farmhouse. This is beautiful. So I'm carrying it around. And again, this is one of those estate sales that didn't have prices. So the lady's like, oh, just put it over on the couch and I'll make you a deal at the end, whatever. And so we're going through this house and this outbuildings and we're pulling things in, And she just looks at the whole pile and she's like, you know what? Just give me $20. And I'm just like, okay. So, well, we had a ton of stuff. I'm talking about hundreds of dollars of stuff. And inside of this was that paperweight. And so I had knee replacement surgery from an injury on the job. And I sitting in my bed like a few days afterwards, and I'm looking over at this paperweight and it's so pretty. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to list this to see if I can actually sell it, but I'm going to sell it really high. So I put it up on eBay and I listed it for $350 and it sold. And I was devastated because I wanted to keep it because it was so pretty. But
did you post that on the group?
Yeah, it's been a few years.
I think I remember it was just beautiful. It had like little like designs on the inside. Yeah. It was clear glass.
That was the first time I used for my first picture. You know how like on eBay you have that one picture that shows on when you're going through
the gallery photo, right?
Yeah, gallery photo. So I had used this app that allowed me to do a picture layout. So I did 4 different sides of this beautiful paperweight, and I used 4 different pictures on my gallery photo, and it was just it was probably one of my best photos I've ever taken. So that the lady was attracted. She said it was, and it went back to England, and she said that was the photo that she saw that was just like, I like the way you took the pictures of this. So that was one. Some of my favorite items I sold are items that I priced really high, hoping that they didn't sell, and they did. Another one was my husband and I. Okay, so during COVID, I'm teaching. We're online, kind of like in a Zoom class like we are right now.
And, how do you do physical fitness through Zoom?
Our exercise.
Oh, you just like you're doing a workout video. They're just
I posted videos and told my kids to go do a workout, and they lied and told me they did it. So, but no.
Yeah, how would you ever know?
Exactly. So my husband and I was on. My husband's a teacher. He was in the room over across from me. My daughter was upstairs teaching. She was living with us at the time. And my one student goes, hey, Mrs. Furman, I'm not going to be in class tomorrow. And I'm like, how are you not going to be in class? Where are you going to go? We're in COVID. Where are you going to go? And he's like, I'm at the World Series.
You're going to be in the shower.
Exactly. He's like, I'm in Texas. I'm at the World Series. Well, that's when the Dodgers were playing. My husband looks up at me and he's like, what? And so I finished that class, and my husband's like, I can't believe your student's in Texas. It's COVID. It is the World Series. I want to be there. So we made that decision right then. You know what? We could be anywhere in the world and still teach. So we actually took that year and we traveled the United States, and we would go to different cities and we would teach, and then we would spend the rest of the day thrifting or looking at sites.
Oh my gosh. That is now my dream vacation.
Oh my gosh. You should do it. You can come. I'm sitting in my second house. You can come to California and I'll let you stay here and you can go thrifting. So the first trip was, we went to Hawaii. We went to Hawaii 3 times during COVID, different islands.
Oh my gosh.
We went to Hawaii, and we're in this thrift store after I taught class, and I happened to look over, we're at the cash register, and I happened to look over, and on this wall is this rack of purses or socks or whatever. There were purses and there were socks. There was like things all in these baskets. And I walk over and I see this plastic purse, and I'm like, this is old. And I'm looking at it, I'm like, this is lucite. This is really old.
I was going to say, was it that hard lucite, almost like, it looks like mother of pearl, but it's not. It's that iridescent.
Clear. Yeah, this one was clear, but
clear.
But it was teardrop shape and it had ripples and everything. And I opened the lid and in was stamped Wilardy. Willardy.
Okay.
And I'm like, okay, I know this is old. I know this is old. $3.99. I pick it up. I go to the cash register, and I'm like, I show the lady the price, and I take it back because I know it's got to be valuable. So I get to the car, and my husband's looking up on the phone. Where's the next thrift shop to go to? And I'm looking it up, and I'm like, I know this is old. And it was in one of the things that popped up was Purses for the Stars, and it had his name. So then I started looking through, and he was a famous purse designer back in the 50s and 60s. And he has since passed, and his son had this museum for him. So he had this online museum, like pictures of his dad's purses and stuff like that. And he talked about the history of the purses. So then I was like, I know this is worth something. So I do a little bit more research. I reach out to him, asking him if he can give me some guidance and everything like that. And so then I eventually list this purse on eBay, thinking, okay, what price am I going to put on it? So I put $500, thinking nobody's going to buy that.
Mhm.
And so it sold. It sold for $400. The lady sent me an offer for her $400, and I thought about countering her. And I'm thinking, you know what? I made my money back. I only paid $4 in taxes for this. My husband's like, take it. So I took it. I took the offer, and then I sent her this purse. Extra postage, extra insurance, and signature confirmation and everything. And that's right when COVID first started. And it never got scanned as delivered. But she sent me a message. I love this purse. I'm a purse collector. I follow him all the time. I look for his purses. Thank you so much for this purse. Well, it didn't show as being scanned. And I was getting nervous, like, okay, I hope she leaves me feedback, because it never showed up as being scanned, as being delivered. And I didn't have that signed delivering confirmation. So I just sent her a message. I go, thank you for the compliment of the purse. I go, I'm going to leave feedback for you now. Thank you for making communication. I hope you do the same. And she goes, yes, I will. Well, she didn't. She didn't leave feedback for several days. I'm getting nervous, like, okay, is she going to claim that this purse was not delivered? So
Oh gosh.
I do the call the post office. They do a check, and they're like, well, during COVID, we don't have people sign for things because of COVID. I'm like, well, you're offering a service
personal
Yeah.
interaction.
I said, but you're offering the service. You took my money for this. That's what I paid for. And now I don't know. I don't have proof that this purse was delivered. So I would like to file a claim on this purse. Well, then they started backtracking. They went to the house, they knocked on it. Did you get this item? Oh yeah, I got this item. I already communicated with the lady. So I was like, okay, you need to get signature confirmation on it. So they actually did have her go back and sign it. So that was another one that she contacted me that I sold. And it was kind of one of those scary situations, like thinking, is she going to say she never received it? But she was honest. She did get it, and she loved it. She added it to her collection. Another one would be that I found would be this guy was into wrestling, and I'm talking about like 80s, 60s, 70s, 80s wrestling.
Oh gosh, yeah.
He
Ric Flair,
Yes.
Ric Flair, Nature Boy. Oh
Yes,
gosh, we lived in
exactly.
Charlotte, and that was huge.
Yes.
Oh.
So there is a crowd for that too. So
Yep.
this is this last day of the estate sale. Everything's 50% off, and he had this T-shirt in a dry cleaning bag, and I'm like, who puts a T-shirt in a dry cleaning bag? And I'm looking at this T-shirt, and it's this wrestler from the 70s, and he had autographed it across the shoulder, his name, and I'm like, I've never heard of this person. I've never heard of this person. So I go through and I'm looking him up and doing some research, and so I list the shirt. And I list it high for $250. I think his name is Jim Snodgrass or Snodgrass. So I list it for $250, and somebody bought it like that, thinking, how did that sell so fast? So did I price it low or whatever? And I was kind of curious. So I did the same thing. I put the extra insurance and delivery confirmation on it. It gets delivered. It happens to be the granddaughter of that wrestler. She didn't care what the price was. She wanted that because it had her grandfather's face. It had his body from one of his old pictures or whatever. And it had an autograph on it. And he has since passed, and she wanted it. And somebody I had never heard of. And I'll be honest, I followed wrestling. My dad, I said, I don't know if I told you I was a tomboy growing up. I watched those wrestling shows, and I had not heard of this person, but that just shows you there's something for everybody. This lady, that was her grandfather. She wanted it, and she paid for it. So that was another. And I forgot to tell you, I paid $1 for that. $1
It
for a
sold for
t-shirt.
250.
250. Yeah.
Well, and I think there's a lot of closet wrestling fans out there.
Oh yeah.
My ex-husband was into all that, and we lived in Charlotte, and I went to one of the wrestling matches with all that. I just remember Ric Flair, Nature Boy, 22-inch python arms, all that stuff. And I was like, okay, I did that once. Never, you're gonna have to find somebody else. I'm not doing that again.
as a kid growing up, and I'm in my teenage years, my dad took me to the Ohio State Fair, and Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant were there. And
Hulk Hogan, right?
Hulk Hogan body slammed Andre the Giant.
So let me circle back to the pricing high issue, because I get a lot of questions like from my premium members where the email support is part of that. And they'll have an item and they'll just say, I can't find anything on this. I don't, what would you do? And I don't give pricing advice because, a lot of times I don't know how to price things. And even the experts, which I think, anybody who's been selling on eBay for any length of time can be considered an expert. It's just sometimes you don't know. You just have to guess. And that is very unscientific. But you've mentioned that several times here, is sometimes you don't know. You just guess and see what happens.
I feel like there's research involved, and you have to kind of step outside of eBay because there are other platforms. Mm-hmm. Even though eBay is what I sell on. But I kind of like to find out. I also go on to sites where there's collectors for those items.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Like there's Collectors Weekly, and there's that, what is this group on Facebook? And I am talking about going outside of eBay. Like sometimes there's nothing on the internet anywhere, no blog, no picture, nothing on YouTube, nothing on like replacements.com, all the places you can look, and you can't find anything.
That's why I set it high and put an offer, because I don't know what I don't know what the value of it is. So if I set it high, and if they're willing to make an offer, then I can kind of go back and forth on that. I feel like I'm not an expert in all the areas, but I know enough to be a little bit deadly. So I feel like that I could just kind of name my price and think that I'm really close to being what should be fair. And if I'm willing to take an offer on it, then I usually, if it's a fair offer, I'll take it right away. But if it's something like, let me see if I can get a few more dollars out of you, then I'll counter. And if they get offended, then they get offended. And I mean, that's happened. And
the thing is that you said the value of it, that is a moving target. It depends on who the person is,
exactly,
who your buyer is, and who your seller is. Because, maybe they just want to get rid of it. They're sick of looking at it, and they just take an offer, and it's way below what they could have gotten next week when somebody else saw it.
Right. And that has happened. I actually, just to get rid of something because it was so big or taking up space, here, take it. And they're like, wow, I was hoping that you would counter me. I was thinking we would go back and forth on this. I'm like, I just need it out of my house. It's taking up space.
Right.
And you're going to use it. So I'm okay with that. So
yeah. And then that person might resell it for more. And that's just the nature of this business. There's no way you can prevent that. There's no way you can predict a lot of these things that, a celebrity will die and then all of a sudden their stuff is worth more, or an artist will die, and same thing there. And it's just a constant moving target. All this stuff is just getting sold back and forth, and you can't get stuck in, I could have gotten more for that. No, you got what you got, and you move on to the next thing. Because you know what? You're going to walk into that estate sale next week and you're going to see more stuff.
Right. That just goes to show, like, talking about prices. The pink gooseberry Pyrex dish is the bowls, the nesting bowls. So I've been sitting on a set for years, and I thought I was going to give them to my daughter, and she thought about it, and she's like, you know what? I don't really want them. We just recently moved, and I brought them with me. We moved and I had a huge eBay inventory and I didn't want to hassle with it. So we had an estate sale and I sold my entire eBay stuff. And this was in November. And so my store is just starting to pick back up with stuff that we're unpacking. I'm like, oh yeah, I saved that for eBay. So these Pyrex dishes I saved for eBay and I just listed them. And I had gone through the solds and everything. They were about, I don't know, anywhere from $250 to $300. And I'm like, I really, really like these. I didn't pay that much for them. So I'm going to price them high. I priced them for $375, thinking that was way too much money because I think like it was like $75 over the last sold.
Mhm.
So then I'm like, okay, so I left them there and it's coming up on a month or whatever that they've been listed. And during that time, I never checked solds again to see what they were. I just knew the last time I checked when I listed them, they was 300. So I set mine at 375, got a lot of offers, lowball offers, didn't take them. So then just yesterday, somebody offered me $300. And I'm like, you know what? That's the best offer I've received. That's what somebody else got for them. I took the offer.
For you.
Well, lo and behold, I go and check. And because I set mine high, people set theirs coming after mine, set theirs high, and they were selling for 340 to 360. And I'm like, wow, if I'd only checked and I counted her, then I could have got more money. But you know what? I made money. I'm happy with it. Hopefully she's going to be happy with them. Those are hard to come by and they're going to be out of my house. So like you said, one week it's going to be the price of something, and the next week the value is either going to go up or down. So you gamble with what you when you take those offers, you gamble. But I was happy with my price, and she's going to be happy with her dishes, I hope. So that's how fast things change within a month's time. And I think that's the fun part of this business, though. To me, it's a hobby. I know for some people this is their livelihood, but I find that that's the more I can learn about things. I'm really bad with names. I do know my students' names, but I'm really bad with parents. Like they tell me their name and it's gone in one ear out the other. But I'm bad with names. I'm bad with just kind of like memorizing things. But when it comes to something I enjoy, this hobby, I'm like, oh, such and such said they bought that for this much money, and this is how much it cost, and this is how much money they made. And so when I'm out in the wild, like with your book or whatever, you have something that's concrete. It's showing you what you should be looking for, and it's giving you that ballpark estimate of like the value of this is what this is. And that's why, like I said, I learn a lot from your little videos, and I like the money post, and I think you do the supersize post now that you're just like, wow. These people, they're finding these things and they're
I know there's the super size $100, and then I started the mega size for over $350. And
I think I made that one just recently on that one. I was like, wow. At first I'm like, I'm never going to make that. And then I was like, wow, I made it.
What was the item?
So my husband and I were in Hawaii back in January, and we went into this Habitat for Humanity store. And you'll find in Hawaii and in Key West, they like their teachers. So if you go into a thrift store, what are you looking for? Because they know you're traveling, because you're not from those. Those are not. They're not Key West and in Hawaii. If they know you're not locals, I don't know how they know. They just
they're just that's a huge tourism industry.
Yeah, so they just know.
They just assume.
What do you do? What do you do for a living? So we tell them, well, we're teachers, and they like their teachers. That's good, because not very many people do, but they like their teachers. So they strike up conversations. What are you buying this for? I think it's pretty. So my husband and I were in a Habitat for Humanity in Hawaii it was in Maui. And we walk in and there's these monkey sconces, like,
oh, okay. Yes. I remember those. They were
huge.
Yes,
and
so unusual and
heavy.
Funky and fun.
I think they weighed 17 pounds each. They were made out of this hard wood. They were just beautiful, decorated, hand painted. They had the metal sconces coming out of them.
Yeah, they were like scrolly and very almost Victorian, but with a monkey.
Right, exactly. And the monkey had like a tricorn hat, and I thought it was a apple, but somebody said no, they were coconuts. They were, I don't know. Anyways, so I'm looking at them, and she's like, yeah, we just got those in. Do you like those? I go, I do, but I don't know where I would put them, thinking I want to resell these.
Yeah, of course.
And she's like, well, do you want them? I'm like, well, I don't, it depends. You don't have a price on them. How much? And she goes, well, we like teachers, so I'm going to give you a discount. I'm like, okay, well, how much are they originally? She goes, $40 each. So I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm not going to take them for $40 each. She goes, but we like our teachers. I'll give them to you both for $30. Will you take them? I'm like, yes, I will.
That will work. Yes.
And so she was like, well, how are you going to get them back in your luggage? And my husband goes, you don't understand. She's a prolific thrifter. So when we go on these vacations, we literally take everything we're going to wear in our backpacks. Or you get 2 carry-ons, and then we take empty suitcases. So we put one inside of each other. So you're only checking in 1, but you're bringing back 4, or you're checking in 2, 1 for me, 1 for
Oh,
him.
because they're all nested inside.
Right.
Ah, that's smart.
Fill those babies up. You get 50 pounds. That's 200 pounds of stuff, treasures you can find abroad. And we bring them back and we sell them. And so I put those monkeys in the suitcase, and I packaged all my other things I found over there, and I brought those back, and they sold within 3 weeks. They went to a famous, I looked him up on eBay, not eBay, on Google. He's a famous interior designer for the stars in Chicago, the wealthy in Chicago, I think it was.
Wow.
And he sent me several messages afterwards, like, if you ever find anything like this again, don't put it on eBay, contact me. This is what I'm looking for. And I told him they came from Hawaii, so he liked the story, the provenance of them and stuff. But yeah, I paid $30 for them and sold them for, I don't know, $400. I think I sold them for $400. So it was pretty amazing.
That is pretty amazing.
Because it was, and there was a watcher. There was a watcher for a long time. So I was like, I'm going to send this person an offer. And so I had him listed at $6.99, and I think I sent him an offer for $500. He countered with $400, and I took it. He's like, okay, this is a much better deal than I thought. My clients were willing to negotiate. And I'm like, well,
absolutely.
They were out of my house. They were big. They were sitting, actually, this is my bonus house. They were sitting on that bed right back there. And we had somebody come over, and I had to take them and put them over here on the couch. And they're like, what are you going to do with those? I'm like, I'm going to sell them. I'm going to sell them. So yeah. Another time we were in Hawaii during COVID time, my daughter collects American Girl. She loves American Girl. Mm-hmm. So she started selling off some of her extras and stuff. And I got her started on her little eBay business for that. And I walk this was on the Big Island, into a Goodwill. And actually we were looking for a restroom. And this is during COVID when bathrooms are not open. So I'm like, oh, Goodwill probably will let you use the restroom. So I go in, I need to use your restroom. And I go, sorry, it's during COVID. I can't use the restroom. And she pointed to the door, and I look over, and standing like upright to the wall of the bathroom was this 90s, I can't remember the year. I think it was 92. It was written on the box, an American Girl doll. And it was Addie. And she's the African-American one. She's the only one. In her full, they was still in the box. The neck thing was on the feet, the ties on them were there, never bought out of the box. And I'm like, please let me use your restroom. And so she wouldn't let me use the restroom. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to buy that doll there. I walk over and bought this American Girl doll, $7.99, come home looking up prices. And it was one that my daughter did not have. So I actually ended up giving it to her, but it was like, I could have easily sold it for $300. It was one of those nice dolls. So if you're ever out, take an extra suitcase, travel, you can do some thrifting in some major towns, and there's some really nice things. So.
Yeah. One of my bucket list things is to travel America in a very comfortable RV and just stop where I feel like stopping. I mean, I need someone to do this with. I'm not doing it by myself, but just go wherever. And, you got everything you need in that RV. You can take your time. There's internet everywhere. I mean, I guess you'd have to put your store on time away because you can't be at home shipping things, but
you can ship from the road. I've done it.
Well, you'd have to bring your inventory with you.
Well, if you're thrifting on the road, you can list that stuff.
Right. You can list what you have with you, but everything else.
Yeah.
No, because I don't know. There are people that do this, which is where I got the idea. There was this lady I used to follow, and all she did was ephemera, postcards, old letters, movie tickets, concert tickets. And she could take her inventory with her because it was just like 4 or 5 tubs of stuff,
Yeah.
but she had it all organized. And I think there was jewelry, and she built this business in a way that could be mobile. So she could do
Very
it
smart.
from an RV. And I think she lives in the RV, but that was fascinating. I'm like, that is brilliant, because you never have to put your business on hold if you can, just be like a turtle and bring it with you.
Right.
I got my house with me. I got my stuff with me. So, it's doable. Now, here we are all these years later, and internet is everywhere. I mean, and you can drop your stuff off at a post office or wherever, whatever the next town is, you can ship it from there. I guess you would have to do either flat rate or free shipping on everything, because
Right. You don't want to be carrying those boxes with
the
you.
ship from location is going to change. So the price would change if it was calculated.
Right.
So you have to think through some of those details, but
Very doable.
absolutely. If you think about it as a business plan, like, how do I do this? And I have to change that. And how would this work? But you could totally, I'm sure there's people listening that do this in their RV or just their vehicle, and they just travel around and stockpile their inventory, find cool stuff in different parts of America. I just think that would be so fun and just fascinating.
Well, we have a blast out of it. Like I said, COVID was good to us. They allow us the chance to kind of travel, because otherwise we're only limited to a short amount of time in the summer to do it. But you're right. You in different parts of the world, you're finding different things, and it's fun to find neat things out of your realm. I mean, it challenges my brain to kind of figure out, okay, what is this? What do you think the value is going to be? What is going to sell? And so I like that.
I don't want to buy an RV. I don't want to figure out an RV. I want the universe to drop that person into my life. It's like, oh, here's a nice guy, and he has an RV, and he likes to travel, and he likes eBay too. And it's all going to line up. And he's also a male underwear model, and he's good looking.
Got to set your expectations high for that.
Yeah, you have to ask for what you want. And if you're not specific, then
Right.
you might not get exactly what you want. So anyway, I love that you traveled. Now, wasn't it sort of restrictive during COVID to travel?
It was. So depending on where you went, Hawaii mainly made us take a COVID test prior to going. And then when you got there, you had to take a COVID test. But within the state, so we went to Vegas for a week. We went to Arizona. We went to Key West. We went to Ohio, Pennsylvania. We did some traveling. So within the states, it was not as strict as it was going to Hawaii. And we were very cautious. I mean, because COVID was a very real thing. And it was just one of those things where when we traveled, we definitely masked up. When we were out and about, we masked up. We washed our hands everywhere. But we were safe about it. And it wasn't like we were saying, okay, school's out, because we were still doing our job. That was our number one priority. So we vaccinated. We were vaccinated. So that was another thing. As teachers, we had to be vaccinated. So we took the precautions in hand, but it also allowed us for travel. They were doing some great deals. Like Vegas was doing work from Vegas. So for teachers, it was giving them a huge discount on their room.
Oh, okay.
And, so yeah, there were some, you had to look, and my husband's always, he's always looking for deals. So we met up with a group in Hawaii that are teachers, and they rent out their Airbnbs. And so because they were not getting the travel during that time, they were not getting the tourism. He's like, hey, we're teachers. We want to come there to teach. Do you have good Wi-Fi? They were giving us discounts for teachers too. So we just kind of took advantage of it. We weren't, I don't want to say we weren't disrespectful with the rules or anything like that. We were very cautious about it. So yeah. There was
It took
no,
some research to find the right fit for where you wanted to go, where you wanted to stay,
right.
all that kind of stuff.
We're pretty active people. We like to sightsee and stuff like that. So a lot of that stuff was not available. So you just kind of you were just going there basically enjoying the scenery. A lot of the things were shut down during that time. So
Right.
a lot of the tours and stuff. So it was just basically going and using their Wi-Fi from a different location, because who wants to be stuck at their house with their kids? Because at the time, my daughter, her husband, her daughter was living with us, and my son and my other daughter from she was sent home from she goes to a university in Virginia, and she was sent home during that time. So it was like this is a lot of people in a small house, and you got three of us teaching, and you got
Yeah.
a little kid running around. So we took advantage of it. We have a motorhome. We took off and went up.
Okay.
We had Wi-Fi boxes, so we did go camping a few times up in the mountain. We live like I said, we live in the desert, so there's some great camping spots up in Bishop and Mammoth area. So we would just take off and use our camper, and my kids would be like, "Mrs. Furman, where are you at this week? It looks shady." I'm like, "Oh, this is just my camper. It's okay." So yeah, we did this prior to COVID too. I'm just saying we took advantage of COVID time to be able to do that. But it doesn't matter if we go on vacation. If I go back to see my mom in Ohio, or my husband has relatives in Pennsylvania, we're thrifting. We're looking for things. We like to go out and about. But yeah, I think my dream is with you. Once I retire, man, I'm hitting that motorhome and I'm out.
Well, and that's one of the reasons that I've been shrinking my inventory and the storage space is, and I wrote about this in my personal book, that was something we were going to do. This, me and the love of my life are going to do this, and he's gone now. So, but I can still have that. I can
Right.
find a way to make that happen. So that's why I'm like focusing on these little things, the eyeglasses, hats and gloves. And some of those things sell for, $50 and up, and they're
Oh,
so easy to ship.
if you find those old, I sell a lot of men's eyeglasses from the 50s and 60s, and those are easily $200. Easily.
Yeah,
Those
yeah.
welding glasses, I find those all the time, and they're every estate I sell, I go to $1, $1, and I'm like,
Like that's overlooked. People don't realize.
and that's
they're used
small.
for people who don't know, they're used for props, like for wardrobe.
Prescription.
Yeah, well, you can,
What they call it, rockabilly or something like that. Rockabilly.
yeah, the buyer just changes the lenses. So it doesn't matter what the prescription is,
Right.
and that's what people are like, well, how can you sell eyeglasses? How do you know that the person, what the prescription is? And it's like, it doesn't matter. They're going to change it out anyway. For people who wear glasses, you pretty much change your prescription every few years,
Exactly.
whatever the frame is. So that's the expensive part sometimes, is the frame.
Yeah. Well, you're downsizing. Like I said, I sold everything in my estate. So we moved to a different house, and I'm building back up, I guess is the thing you say, but I'm taking my time. I'm using your resources that you're putting out there. I'm using your videos to kind of help me understand, organizing myself a little bit better, understanding my bookkeeping a little bit.
My last question is, what is your advice for someone starting out or who just wants to get into this like you do alongside your full-time job? What would you advise?
Definitely, I would use your research tools that you have available. They do your research. It gets overwhelming to the point to where you're like, this is so much fun buying, that it overtakes your house, your life, or whatever, that you actually have to start selling stuff. And that's the hard part, is getting it listed, getting the pictures taken, finding out about the stuff. So I don't really have a niche of things that I like to sell. I like to sell things that make money. So whatever's going to make me money is what I'm looking for. And I feel like in the beginning, I was buying everything just because it was there and it was available. And now I'm kind of like you. I'm focusing on certain things that I know from looking at your book, looking at your videos, looking at your online tools that you have available, that I know that, hey, somebody's made money on this. Do I want to sit on it for a long time to make my money back, or do I want a quick sale? And sometimes I'll wait, but most of the times I'm going to take that quick sale just because I want it out of my house.
Okay, well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast and all the information you shared. I know that's going to be helpful to listeners. And we will see you on the group with your amazing sales once you get back in the groove of eBay.
All right, 2 weeks.
Okay, great. Thanks so much, Kim. It was good to meet you.
Thanks. Have a great day.
Okay, bye.
Thanks again, Kim, for taking time out of your busy day to chat about eBay. And thank you, listeners, for joining us for this episode. Today's motivational quote is from Mark Cuban. Creating opportunities means looking where others are not. Sometimes you have to zag while other people zig. I'll be back next week with another seller interview. Have a profitable and productive and fun week on eBay. Bye, everybody.